What is going on, everybody? We're back. We are back doing interviews. We've done some shows consistently throughout the year, but it's been a little break since we've done some interviews. And I wanted the first one back to be with a friend. And so I called my good buddy Triston up, texted you, said, hey, you want to jump on? You said, sure thing. We got delayed a little bit, but here we are.
We made it.
So I wanted to be a friend because this is truly, other than Masters athletes, my first interview since the CrossFit Games.
Mm.
And that has been 5 months.
Crazy.
Yeah. For a guy who was doing right before the games 5, 6, 8, 10 interviews a week, to go to none was rough, but it's I think it was needed in a myriad of ways. One, just to catch my breath a little bit and sort some things out after the games in my own head before I asked anybody else about it.
Sure.
So how have you been, man?
Busy as ever. I mean, games, ended, and then Masters Games was right after that. So was out there and then came back and got married. Me and my now wife got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. October 18th. And then that was all during kind of off-season qualifier time. And then went to Desert City, went to Turkey Challenge up in Colorado. Athletes here were doing some other competitions in Louisiana and Texas, and then Thanksgiving, and now kind of December's the 1 month we have to kind of and relax a little bit before, Wodapalooza, TFX, Fittest of the Coast, and then the season itself.
So there's a lot in there. Congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you.
You guys have been engaged quite a while, right?
Yeah. We were engaged, almost like 2 years, I think. We were engaged a while.
So in my experience, no wedding goes off without a hitch. There's always something behind the scenes that happens that gives you a story for the rest of your life. Do you have one of those?
Ours was about as hitchless as you could get, I think. The only thing that really almost was a hiccup was our officiant misplaced his tie. So we had to get his tie delivered by his wife. But she made it with plenty of time to spare, and things like that. So other than that, it was pretty seamless though.
Yeah, I was not so fortunate. When we were going from the wedding to the reception, we were to walk in through this arch of stuff into the reception. I stepped on my wife's train, ripped her dress in the back. And thank goodness we invited the seamstress to the wedding.
Yep.
As we hustled to the kitchen for her to get sewn back up super fast. So we could continue on with the reception.
That would have been stressful. That would have stressed me out. That would have been, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. It turned out really well. I think it was the day that we both really wanted it to be. So it was awesome.
That's awesome. Clearing up a couple things. Corey Leonard says, I am Triston's favorite IG person ever.
He might be. He likes to ask me some of the most ridiculous questions when I'll throw up like my Monday little Q&A thing. He comes up with some good ones.
Corey also said, can we get Triston's mustache its own window?
Do you like that, Corey? Do you like that?
And Jamie says, no, I don't like it. I mean, she says hi.
Yeah, I don't know how Jamie would feel about the mustache.
So you mentioned a bunch in there. Masters CrossFit Games, we were there together.
Yep.
You are the coach of Jamie Latimer. How did this year's Masters CrossFit Games go?
I mean, she crushed it. I was super proud of her. I felt like it was, well run. The programming, I think, was something that, we could have talked about in hindsight, just some of the events and things like that. And I feel like I heard some people mention it in some of the behind the scenes with like the snatch event being kind of who can load their bar faster and all those kind of things. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. That was the first time I was really inundated in the Masters community at a big competition like that. So I really enjoyed it, and I was super proud of how Jamie did. I think she went out there and performed as we knew that she could. Maybe not what she thought she was capable of, but I was super proud of her.
Yeah. I think she surprised herself on a couple events, which was really cool to see.
Mhm.
Overall, I thought it was the most fun I had doing anything in CrossFit, was making that behind the scenes and hanging out in the back with a community that really is grassroots, right? Like,
Mhm.
these people are not doing it for the money. I mean, there are a select few that are really good and can make a career out of it in the
Sure.
Masters division. But for the most part, 90% of those people are there because it was a goal they had. Some of them have had it for 13, 14, 15 years
Yeah.
and finally made it come true. It was so inspiring and so much fun to hang out back there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was cool.
Not that it was better or worse than like the regular games or the elite athletes. It's just different.
It's
Just
different.
a very different vibe.
It's way different. It's way different vibe.
Yeah. Corey is going to Legends this weekend.
Oh, nice.
For his first big competition as a Masters athlete.
Good luck, Corey.
He sucks at crossover singles, doubles. They have them this week.
Okay.
At Legends. He called me or texted me in a panic yesterday. Any advice for Mr. Leonard on those crossovers?
I mean, he can message me on Instagram and I'll try to help him out for sure. But general advice, if you have to do them and it's a technical thing, you might be able to bypass that if you just get a really long rope. So you have a lot of slack to play with. If you're tripping on your own rope, try to get a longer rope. But if it's a technical thing, you might be able to figure it out.
Kenneth gives him the advice: do your best and forget the rest.
That is sound advice.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was a huge Rocky fan. Every time I'd watch a Rocky movie, I'd go out on the porch and I would do double unders, I would do crossovers, I would do all the stuff because I wanted to be like Rocky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the crossovers are one of the party tricks that I actually have. Like,
nice.
Of all of the things in CrossFit, it's the one thing I can do. I can do reverse crossovers.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Those are hard. Really hard.
I mean, that was the stupid shit I did as a kid.
Sure.
But
it's funny how sometimes that stuff shows back up again. You know, like the kids who walked on their hands. Like apparently that was a thing for people in their childhood. I never got that memo.
Me neither.
It never occurred to me to handstand walk, but I know people who were like, yeah, I used to handstand walk when I was a kid. I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah. My advice to him was just keep your hands low. As long as you can keep your hands low, the better off you'll be. Yeah. It's the long rope theory.
Right.
The longer you keep your hands, the longer the rope is.
Yeah. And really reach when you do the crossover.
Yeah. So then did you go to Crash with Jacob or did you do that from afar?
I did not, because that was the week before the wedding.
Okay.
So he went to Crash solo, and then I went to Desert City where Hattie was and Madison. And then he was at Wad Gods that same weekend.
Okay.
And then I went to Turkey Challenge with him, and then Madison did that on a team, and then Courtney did that as well.
Okay. Cool. How was Desert City? Because that's where Legends was last year. The facility is phenomenal.
Facility's cool. I really enjoyed it. It was well run. It was on time. I didn't see or notice any crazy, like judging snafus or anything like that. Like it seemed very well run. I really enjoyed it. The venue was cool. I'm originally from New Mexico, so anytime I get to go back to the Southwest, I'm pretty excited. So it was nice to be in Phoenix and be in Arizona.
How was Scott Panchik as a programmer for an event?
I liked the events. There were 2 events that were basically predicated on your running ability. They were different to a degree, but they had there was an event with like rope climbs, tote a bar, bike, and then it was like 400-meter runs dispersed. And then there was another event that was like a back squat buy-in from the floor, and then a mile for time. So that was a little bit redundant to me. But I liked the swim, row, bench press. They had the lift was interesting. It was like certain time domain to do 7 snatches, and your score was total load. And if you missed, you could hit another snatch, but once you had 7 reps on the board, you were done. You couldn't go heavier or hit another lift. So that was kind of different, a little gamesy. It kind of turned into a snatch consistency test. What was the other event they had? They had the gymnastics workout with chest to bar muscle ups, crossovers, and handstand walk and ring muscle ups. That was a good event. I liked the programming. I liked that he called an audible, actually. So the last event was originally, it was like 3 rounds of dumbbell snatch, lateral burpees over the dumbbell, and then double dumbbell thrusters. And originally it was 50 and 35 across. And he called an audible day of for the elite to do it with heavy dumbbell snatches. So 70 and 50. And then they kept 50 and 35 for the thrusters. And I really enjoyed. I thought when I got to the weekend, I had thought that event should be programmed that way. So there was more separation. And then I talked to him after he was watching the RX do it. And he made the decision like, hey, we need to change this for the pro division, the elite division. And I thought that was really cool.
So, couple quick notes here. Kenneth says, I caught Brian Friend interviewing you, and I was like, hey, that's Coach Krispy Kreme.
I lost the shirt, and it makes me so sad.
Need to find a way to remake that.
I know.
And then I was actually going to ask you this question. Did you check out Reps Ahead while you were at the turkey thing?
I didn't watch it live. We ended up watching a little bit of it back at Madison's house after we left the venue. I like the idea. It's different. I think it's a cool thing to do.
I thought this was the best version of it so far.
Okay.
But I think that my take is they need to change up the movements. It's getting repetitive already after just 5.
Right.
Of where there's a box something in the middle, there is a barbell at one end, and there's a gymnastic move on the barbell. And I get it. They're trying to have a little bit of everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to be getting repetitive.
That makes sense.
But yeah. But I thought this was the best one yet because people were going for knockouts. Which makes it more dramatic.
Right.
And it took me all till the 5th one that I watched to understand it's based on like a boxing or an MMA fight. Like, it's a rounds and you're trying to get a knockout and you're like, and then as I saw that concept came to my head better, like then I enjoyed the matches better.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little, I had never watched like the intro where they call out like name, age, height, weight. And I was like, oh, that's odd for a CrossFit event, but that's kind of like you said, what they're going for. So,
right. Yeah. I love the rep counter. Like that innovation alone, if it could be brought to other events where there's a TV screen on the floor with the reps, would change the freaking game for CrossFit. It would be so much more watchable and so easy to tell the story if you could see the person's reps in their lane.
Right. Yeah, because they've never really had that live. They've had it on the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
The
Um,
ticker at the top.
Mayhem Classic tried to pull it off
Okay.
back in 2020,
Mhm.
and it was successful one of the 3 days. On the Sunday, it was successful, but they had like hellacious weather the weekend. They were like, and it affected all of the internet
Mhm.
technical stuff for the weekend. So I'd like to see it tried again. But Rich said that weekend that it was pretty expensive, but he wanted to have the best viewing experience possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah. So you get through all that. And in the meantime, there's all these questions in the air as to what 2025 is going to be. Hearing rumors, hearing people going to try other things. We got an announcement, 2 weeks ago?
I think
I
so.
think 2 weeks ago today, of what CrossFit released as their season. It lacked some detail.
Yeah.
In amongst this, there's a World Fitness Project created by Will Morad that's happening as well. We have even less details about that.
Yeah.
So, as a coach, with all of this stuff going on and rumors circulating like crazy, what is your responsibility to your athlete during this time?
I mean, I don't like to contribute to things that are going to make the athletes sit around and stress out and ruminate. I feel like most of the athletes in the space do that enough on their own. They just sit around and worry about everything. Obviously, like the changes every year make it easy to do that, and the events of the last season, kind of made the climate that way. So I stayed pretty low key. Conversations with people, but at the end of the day, we're trying to get bigger, stronger, faster, and fitter, and better at the sport of CrossFit. So those things don't really change. As we start to get this information and stuff, there's more conversation about, okay, what do you want to do? Like with how these decisions they've made impact them based on their competitive level as an athlete. How do you want to approach this? Like my role is not to tell people what to do. My role is to guide them toward hopefully, this achievement or this improvement in performance and things like that. But they're the ones who say where the boat goes. They're the ones who pick the landmark that they want to move toward. So since we've got the announcement, I've just been starting to have those kind of conversations with my athletes. What do you want to kind of train for based on these changes? What do you feel like putting your time and energy and sacrifice into? And just being there to facilitate conversation and listen to them and illuminate other opportunities there might be. Things like that.
Do you foresee, because you have a handful of athletes, do you foresee part wanting to go one direction and part wanting to go another, or do you see them kind of all heading in that same direction right now?
So for me, the way I kind of categorize this in my head, so I coach a lot of athletes who are, I would say, high quarterfinals, and so semis bubble. I think for them there will be more of a potential divide in if their goal has been to make a semifinal and we don't know any information about how to get to the in-person sanctional yet. So acting off the information they have right now, if the open doesn't lead or isn't a requirement for the qualification to an in-person sanctional, and they don't have the desire to do online semifinals at the affiliate, knowing that just the reality is they're not going to be in the top 20 in the world, like that's just, call a spade, then I think a lot of those athletes will probably just potentially look for other competition opportunity. Some of them will still do the open just to do it with their community, do it to throw down, let's make sure I'm in the top 1%. Like this is a good benchmark to have. but whether they want to do the online semis, I think that just kind of varies person to person. And then I think for, Hattie, Jacob, I actually haven't really dove into super intense conversations with them yet. Jacob's been doing a lot of competing. He's doing, some more competing before the season starts. So it's just one of those things where I also feel like I don't really want to sit down and, okay, what's the deal until we have more information.
Hattie's been doing some competing as well, as she won Battle of the Barracks.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
took second at Desert City, correct?
Yeah. It's her. Yeah, that was a wild weekend.
So those are the people that I'm most concerned about. As you're hearing people declaring, and I'm not sure, other than Emma McQuaid, we've had a definitive declaration as to I'm not doing the Open.
Mm-hmm.
We had Pat Vellner the other day say probably not, but
right.
But like we've had one definitive statement. Chandler Smith put out something. I'm not sure what it said.
Yeah, it was pretty vague.
Yeah. So let's go with Pat's interview. He says that people have Stockholm syndrome and they think that the only way to success is through the game season. And I think that's easy to say for a veteran athlete who has done this 10 times or however many it's been for him. And has then been given the opportunities to do the Wodapaloozas and the Rogues and the Dubais, and by invitation generally as well, where he doesn't even have to do the online qualifiers.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last 2 game seasons, you have coached an athlete that nobody gave a shot to make the games. And they both made it, in Kelly Baker and Hattie Kanyo.
Mm-hmm.
What about those athletes?
I feel like at the core of this, for a lot of the athletes that are not those veterans, the value proposition is not the same. To me, Pat and those athletes, their value proposition is different because they truly do make a living from going to the games. Whereas even for athletes who are striving to reach for the CrossFit Games for the first time, if they're not a crazy social media influencer, they are doing it for the achievement of making the CrossFit Games. And that is an achievement because the CrossFit Games has name and legacy and prestige. And, it's the UFC of our sport. It's the NFL, right? It's, insert whatever analogy you want. So I think for them, the value proposition doesn't change in the same way. It's just still the conversation of, is this a game is this a format you want to participate in, right? Like, do you want to do this online thing or go to this sanctional that you have to win, right, to qualify for the games? Now everything's worldwide. Or do you want to see competition opportunity elsewhere? And I don't have a lot of faith that online semifinals will be fair. I just don't. And it's not like I'm super excited about the judging thing, the increased judges course, the public video, the review, all that stuff. You best believe I'm going to be on YouTube, I'm one of those guys. I will sacrifice my time to do my part. But at the same time, they don't have a track record that inspires me very much with that. Right. So and not to speak for him, but another slight difference in this case is like somebody like Jacob. Like, Jacob outperforms by an average of 20% in person. I've literally done the math. So the online semifinal thing, we can do it. Sure. He's not, ignorant to the fact that his raw fitness is probably not in the top 20 in the world, let alone in an online setting yet. So for him, like I said, not to speak for him, but I venture to say we'll be very focused on trying to get to an in-person sanctional, whatever that looks like. Right. So I think
But before we move on from that little piece, would it make you feel better if you knew what that sanctional piece was? Like right now, we have no idea. We don't even know a number. We don't even know locations. We know nothing about that sanctional piece. If you knew what it took to get there, when they were and where they were, would it help you to think about the season better?
Sorry, my dog is freaking out. Yes, it would make me feel better in the sense I'm a planner. And I like to be able to roadmap things and plan things and, back plan from the date we need to be ready to go and have those conversations, start to figure out what the competitive field is going to look like, travel, all of this, as far as we know, or at least from the wording is used, seems like it's going to be worldwide now. So what sanctional do we go to? Is it open? Like, all of those questions. So I think it'd be nice if we had it'll be nice when we get some clarity on those things to start to put together a roadmap and an idea for the season.
I think that is probably the best change. Is I think we have scrapped the regions.
Pros and cons, I guess. But I'll be very curious how they're going to. How are you going to send people where? Right? Like we just don't know. Like, is it? I will be surprised if you can go to an online or an in-person sanctional without having to do the open.
I agree.
So are you then funneling people from the top 1% to these, or do they have to do another qualifier to make it for the event itself?
So my original guess was that they would use your open score to and then you sign up and they determine based on your finish if you are the top whatever they're taking for that who have signed up.
Okay. So if that's the case, it would only make sense that they're still going to use geography to
I don't think they are.
So then how does that sensically make sense if, okay, so Jacob or Hattie or whoever, does the open and they're in the top whatever percent, and then they get an email and they say, hey, congratulations, you can either participate in the online semifinal, and if you'd like to go to an in-person sanctional, you'll be going to Torium Pro.
I don't think they're going to tell you where to go. I think that the sanctionals will be, and it'll be just like 2019 and 2019. Here are these 7 sanctionals.
Right.
You are open to go to any of those 7. You can go to all 7.
I wonder, I guess it's just a numbers, because my head at that point then thinks do you run into a potential issue where some sanctionals are not even able to take however many people are trying to attend, right?
Right.
So that's kind of, my head was thinking about that. And
yeah, Jamie's with me. Go wherever you want, all if you want.
Yeah, and I mean, look, let's not get it twisted. If that's what it is, I'm getting Jacob a plane ticket to Africa. Like, sorry.
Right. But I think you would
like,
there'd be like 3 others doing the same thing.
Sure, but that's a lot less than the 15 that are going to be at each one in North America and the 30 that are going to be at the one in Europe. Right. So, and if that's how they do that, then that's fine. I just think it'll be interesting if they leave that completely laissez-faire to see if you end up with a sanctional that's like, holy crap, we have so many people that we have to try to send these people somewhere else because all of these athletes, don't want to go. And we could probably go back through the leaderboard of like, say, quarterfinals worldwide and see like, okay, Europe may have a problem because they had a significant number of athletes that did very well in in that top 1%, right? In quarterfinals or something.
Yep.
So it'll just be interesting from a numbers perspective. I'm curious to see how that goes out.
Yeah. And, you know, if you read the documentation from CrossFit, some sanctionals will qualify 2, some will qualify 1, but with no explanation as to what that standard is to make you a 1 or a 2.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we're going to be right back in what 2019 or 2020 with.
Yep.
We're going to be right back into like, whoa, like the programming of this sanctional and the field of that sanctional, and I'm sure we'll potentially end up because there's going to be somebody who does online semis, makes it, and goes to a sanctional to win some cash money, and then we're going to be backfilling again, and that whole thing.
The 7th place person is going to qualify because the top 6 already have their qualification, and
right, like,
yeah. The good news for me is, as a podcaster, that gives us a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
We will not be starving for content when all that is going on.
Yeah.
Corey says, go back to the doc when Vellner wasn't really sure how he qualified because it was so convoluted.
I don't think it'll be as bad.
Well, there won't be 30 of them.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's different again.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds to me like if your athletes are doing the season, you would prefer to do an in-person sanctional because they perform better in that. And it's really just a case by case on the athlete who performs better in person, who does better online.
Yeah. And where do you want to roll your dice?
Right.
Do you want to roll your dice with video review, or do you want to roll your dice with the one random judge who hammers you with no reps at the wrong time in person? Like, where are you going to hedge your bet? And the other thing, like, again, we need to get the information of dates, times, locations, how to get there, all that. Because as obnoxious as it is, maybe you try to do both. Because that's the best way to hedge your bet.
Yeah. As many ping pong balls as you can get in the hopper.
Like,
better,
and
right?
Until we know, like, is that ideal from a, performance peaking standpoint? Like all the nerdy coach things in my brain? Fuck no. But until we get information, is it off the table? No. Like, there's a reality where that might be the best decision, is to at least sign up for both, depending on which one's in what order, like all of that.
So for a moment, let's just slide the season to the side. And now there's these alternatives or just other off-season competitions like Metcon Rush and things like that that happen in the same vicinity as the game season.
Sure.
Are there enough of those opportunities for your athletes who, to be frank, are not in the Pat Vellner, Justin Medeiros level yet, right? That can go to any of those they want because of their name recognition at this point, right?
Right.
Are there enough of those for your athletes to build confidence, get better, race, and maybe make some money along the way?
I think there's enough, but I think there's also the need, and I think there will be more. And I think what might have been happening is a lot of us just weren't paying attention to them. Example. And again, all of this exists on a spectrum, right? If you're Pat Vellner and the payout's not 25K plus, you're probably not interested. Right? If the payout's not 30 plus, you're probably just not interested. But depending on where you're at as an athlete, what your travel schedule looks like, how much you enjoy competing, what your real job looks like, because most of them still have real jobs, right? As an example, like Turkey Challenge, their payout for first in elite was 5K. It's not bad for a 2-day comp.
Yep.
Right? They had Jacob was there. Drake Lewis was there. They had a couple other decent quarterfinals guys who were there. Kevin Schutz was there. He's been on teams a bunch of times, been to the games before. So it's like those are small names relative to the big names that we all talk about. But these other competitions are the ones who are potentially going to supplement these athletes and keep them engaged with something to do while they work toward the level of prestige that gets you a Wadapalooza invite or a, whatever invite. So I think there's more smaller competitions we may not have given, a fair look. Wad Gods was a 3K cash prize. Like, that's not bad money. I don't remember what Desert City was, but so I think there's a disconnect. I think there's a big difference between the athletes who have been successful at this long enough that it is how they make their living. They're only going to be interested in things that give them a really large chunk of change, right? And then there's the other cohort of athletes, and you could say that's low games to all the way down to low semifinals / high quarterfinals, who are probably going to find a decent value proposition in going to smaller, what do you call them? The mid-majors, the up-and-coming mid-majors, to make a couple $1,000, right? And to use those things to set up some sort of a season as well. I know, like, I don't know a lot of athletes at this point who really love competing online. I think as a community, we've really, like, people just don't love it. We understand it as of now is a necessary part of it, for qualification to most events, but people want to compete in person. They want to compete.
Let me add on to that with a question. How hard is it going to be to tell this year who we lose in open registrations because of a moral decision, and how many because they're just not doing the online thing, or they don't have their goal of making quarterfinals has been taken away,
right?
Or those types of things, right? You have this mixed bag, and we're not going to be able to tell what
Right.
the root cause of any of that was.
I don't think there's a way you can know unless you send out some sort of a blanket survey to every email that CrossFit has in their database somewhere. But I agree. I think I would expect a decrease in open participation to some degree. And I think it is going to be a, conflux of people very unhappy with how the games was handled and the events at the games, and people also disgruntled about the season changes. And for some people, it's a combination, right? And I feel like the combination is a lot of those people, like Pat, like other people, people who are in the PFA or leadership of the PFA or those things. They're just kind of blanket pissed off right now.
Okay. So now we move back. Let's go back to the game season, and then we get to the games. We are cutting from 40 to 30, and from 30 some to 20 teams.
Right.
Good or bad for CrossFit?
I would say I think in totality bad. That's just my opinion. 30 individuals at the games is not outlandish, but again, they're probably going to still do cuts. So you're going to have 30, and then you're going to have 20, and then you're going to have like 10 people for the last 2 days. And I just think you're limiting the stories and limiting the people and limiting, for people who people for the fans to cheer for and things like that. So
I my thought, just to add on, and maybe it gives you something to think about. My positive of getting rid of regions is for the first time we have the opportunity to get whatever number that is best to the games.
Sure.
Because of regions, people got in that really had no business competing against some of the elite athletes.
A couple, yeah.
So now you fill that with everybody who did earn it, right? Legitimately with everybody against everybody in the world. And who could shake up the leaderboard on any given event.
In theory.
I don't like the cut in from 40 to 30.
Yeah.
Because we never gave it a shot with a real legit 40.
I don't know what you gain from 30 that you don't have with 40. Like logistically, like it's not a crazy difference to me. Yeah. And I'm not the one on the back end. I'm not the one planning stuff, like just outside looking in. The team side, I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence teams will be a thing in 2026. The only way to even go is through the online semifinal. And I'm hopeful because I was thinking about this side thing, but from a event perspective, I'm hoping that the sanctionals will run a 4-person team competition as well. What are you going to do? You're going to run a competition for 4 heats of individual men and women, and that's it?
Well, I think the idea is to do a community event alongside it.
Well, you need that to some degree as well.
But you're going to pay for it.
Right, exactly. But I would hope that maybe some of them do something in person for teams of 4, and they can choose, maybe they have to do a certain thing in the open or an online semifinal, or they have their own competition, whatever. But I mean, that's not a hard one to just go look at. And again, to your point, you will have the 20 best teams for sure. But
Oslo only gets 1 now,
right?
Instead of 5.
Yeah, till they go make another affiliate.
True.
I mean, that's what I would do if I had the money. Who said it on? Somebody said it on one of the podcasts. They're going to affiliate Rich's Barn. It's like, why not?
Yeah. Well, Mayhem truly only had 1 representative from their main gym.
Yes, that's
all
true.
The other people with Mayhem in the name do their programming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Corey says, I got to do a mini camp with a team that's trying to make the games. They are less than excited.
I don't know many people I've discussed this with that are athletes that are really excited. Unfortunately.
So now we're running out of time as I have a meeting this afternoon. But I want a couple more questions before we let you go. And that is, now that all this has been announced at this level, and there's still so much more to get to know, it seems like there's definitely going to be a divide going into the season. How big that divide is, no clue.
Right.
But it is becoming abundantly clear that there are some people that are going to go one way and some that are going another way. Can CrossFit survive? Can CrossFit, the sport, survive that divide?
I think so. Yes. So I put this on, somebody asked me about that on my Instagram story like a week or 2 ago. And the way I've put it to my athletes is the cat is out of the bag at this point. People like to exercise fast. People like to see what they're capable of. People like to watch it. People like to coach it. People like to talk about it, right? I don't if the competitive sport of CrossFit dies, it's because we let it. We are so used to CrossFit / the NFL, right, running this for us. And it's been great. For whatever reason, whether we like it or not, they're backing out. They're pulling back. So what are you going to do? Just going to let it go, or are we going to figure it out? And I think there's enough people who care about this enough, who like this enough, who enjoy this enough, and a lot of people who have been doing this for a long time, event organizers, coaches, brands, all of these things. I think it will survive. I think it'll get weird. I think it's going to be weird for a little bit, potentially. But I don't see a reason why it has to die because of this divergence.
I'm having a hard time myself, like wrapping my head around this. When I first started CrossFit, it was 2011. My first open was 2013. And when I did that, it was such a significant step for me to even put myself, because there was no scaled division back then.
Right.
It was all or nothing, go do the open. But it, in some weird, twisted way, it made me feel like I was competing with Rich Froning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't know if we've lost that completely because so many people are dogging on what the open is now. In 2013, the open was electric. It was everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was competing against Jason Khalipa and Rich Froning and all of those guys, Chris Peeler. And even though I had the snowball's chance in hell of even seeing their name anywhere near me on the leaderboard.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I don't get the sense from my community that that's how they feel now. And do we need that feeling to keep CrossFit as a sport, or is it that it's grown to a point where we just have to we either have to fall back to what we were or take a step into something new?
That's a hard question to answer. I think we're better off when it's that way because the community is involved. And this is probably a completely separate podcast, but
I have 3 ideas that we started on that we need to develop. So I hope you're open the next month.
I am. The athletes became what they had to be successful in the climate they were in. I was thinking about this because I don't remember what I was listening to, but somebody just kept bringing up like, dude, the athletes don't even train in the gyms anymore. You're right. As somebody who has co-owned an affiliate and who has spent a lot of time in affiliates, do you know why a lot of athletes don't train in affiliates anymore? They're not allowed to do their own programming in the gym when there's a class going on, or there's not space, right? Or the owner of the gym doesn't want that. So because it creates a divide. And people are blaming that on the athletes. And I don't think that's fair. If Rich didn't start training twice a day and then start blowing everybody out of the water, and then everybody started training twice a day to keep up with him, nobody would train twice a day. The athletes became what they had to because of the demands of the sport and then the demands of the ecosystem. So then that started the removal from the community.
And let me jump on that because sometimes our memory is we think about all the gumdrops and rainbows.
Sure.
How many the videos prove it. How many times did Rich work out in his dad's garage?
All the time.
Right. Like he wasn't working out at his own affiliate.
Right.
For all of his training.
It's a hard thing to reconcile. And I'm not saying like affiliate owners or coaches or gym owners or whatever are in the wrong for, if you only have a so many square foot gym, yeah, you can't have freaking somebody over there with a yoke and a sled and the rings in the middle of class. Like, it's incredibly
you have paying customers,
right.
That get first dibs, right?
100%. But I don't think it's fair for us to say, oh, well, the athletes need to get back into the community, because then that's going to impact the gym owner's bottom line, right? Like, I think it is better when the athletes are integrated in the community in what the Open was in 2013, 2014, 2015. I remember my first Open in 2015. It was nuts. Like, I just remember pain and a good time, right? Yeah. But things have changed because the ecosystem has changed, the sport has changed, the athletes have changed, the demand has changed. So I think community integration is probably good, but I don't know if we can go back to the way it was, if that makes sense. So I don't know if a big step back is going to work.
So, and I agree with you. I think we're kind of at any small business that grows hits a point where they have to either go all in and step up to a new thing, or fail and fall back.
Right.
And CrossFit, we've said it's a niche sport. It's not in the mainstream. So it's still a small business trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the next step? And as we were talking, I said there's tons of things. As we were describing the mid-majors and then like the Wodapaloozas and the Rogues, when you explain that, in my head, I see the PGA Tour, the Nationwide Tour.
Sure. Yeah.
All those like different segments of ways to advance up through the tours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But someone has to take the time to map out those opportunities.
Sure.
And it seems like at this point, we're just scattered into different directions and nobody is trying to say, this is all the stuff we have. If we just connect these dots and then these dots, you have something to shoot for.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's another podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to open the floor to you in the last 5 minutes. If there's anything overarching that's been announced in the last month that you feel strongly about and that you want to share.
Anything announced in the last month that I feel strongly about?
Maybe one good thing you liked from what CrossFit announced. We've talked about a lot about the bad.
I liked that they didn't fire Dave.
Okay. That's a strong statement these days.
I don't think that it's fair to say that he doesn't care about the athletes. And I think there's a lot of data to back that up. Not saying he's perfect.
Oh,
Not saying he's perfect. But I don't think that's a fair assessment.
I will back that up. I was a volunteer. I've seen that man work behind the scenes. I've seen how meticulous he is about everything. He cares a lot, but he doesn't always know how to show it.
I think, and I'll be fair to counter, people who are going to disagree with me on this, because I think I do have a little bit of a not proximity bias. It wouldn't be the right way to describe it, but I was in the military. And Dave was in the military. He was in a leadership position in the military. He's been in a very big leadership position in CrossFit for a really long time. I don't know, for people to react the way they did and say the thing, like to try to put words in his mouth about what happened. I don't think anybody has probably stayed awake more nights outside of the family than Dave. If I had to guess. And again, that is a potential bias because I understand the way that people who are in the military take those kind of things when you're in a leadership position. But I would say another good thing is I'm a fan of the increased judging course and the public video review. I think that's a fabulous step in the right direction. They'll have to deliver on that, with actually penalizing and those things. But I like that.
I'm gonna piggyback on your Dave thing one more time. While I've seen him work his ass off backstage, I have been critical of him at times, where I do think that the sport has resisted advancement because there's one man kind of running the show.
Sure.
Right. And my example to that is take Rogue and some of the innovations that they have come up with in the way they put on a competition. Simple thing like an enhanced streaming service that you can pay for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
CrossFit hasn't even looked into that.
Right.
Investing money into Bitcoin and all of a sudden the price purse goes way up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You can see this company over here trying all these new things. Mm-hmm. And you can use that analogy to football where like the XFL wasn't great football, but they had great innovation.
Right.
And that the NFL ended up adopting a handful of things that the XFL came up with that were brilliant. Yeah. And when Dave makes the statement, like, I don't watch Wodapalooza, I don't watch.
Right.
You're missing out on some of the innovations that these other comps are coming up with.
Yeah.
Like reps ahead. We just talked about it. The rep counters on the lanes.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I have been. That is where I've been critical of Dave.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Right. And it's, I mean,
but I don't think he should have been fired. But I don't necessarily believe that they shouldn't have hired him help.
Sure. I would agree with that. Right. And I think there's just, I mean, there's so much that we don't know. There's information that, maybe if I knew, then maybe I would change my mind on if Dave should have been fired or should have not been fired, right? If we actually got the full investigation report, depending on what's in there. I just think with the information we have, that's kind of, and I think that a lot of people are very quick to just become a mob mentality. And if I was going to say something not related to CrossFit that I do think I wish, and this is just humans in general could be better at, is just waiting before they speak.
Yeah. I had a thought. Oh, my final thought for today, because it's been a long time since I've talked about a lot of this stuff. The year that CrossFit needed to come out with all the details on their season and come out with it in plenty of time for people to make decisions was this year.
Yeah.
And they have really dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not because I can't make my decision, because I'm going to sign up for the Open because I believe in it. Right. And I want to support the Open, and it will be what it is. But there are a lot of people coming after you. And this was the year you needed everything tightened up.
Yeah.
With plenty of news ahead of time for people to make decisions and to see that there might have been a slight change in the way that you communicate with the community.
Yeah.
And so far that has not happened.
I mean, we're not even getting the rule book until after the new year.
I'm sorry, I coughed. till after the when?
New Year.
Oh, wow.
I had responded to, I think CrossFit Affiliates made a post, and I asked something about the rule book, and if I'm remembering correctly, they said it would be after the New Year. So 2 thumbs up for that.
Awesome. Well, Corey says Triston is a strong dude. I imagine he and I hitting a workout and jamming to some Creed.
I do like me some Creed. I don't know if I'm strong anymore. I used to be a little bit stronger, but I just try to stay fit and healthy these days.
Well, what I'm going to leave you with is I'm really seriously considering doing an everyday show into the new year. How I'm going to ramp that up through December, I'm not sure yet. But essentially, it's going to be, I'm just going to jump on every day at noon. If any of my friends want to join, they are welcome to jump in and we talk. It is, it could be any, and it's going to be any topic. It could be this week's Landman episode. It could be the Big Ten Championship going on tomorrow. It could be CrossFit. It could be whatever. But just an everyday get together with me and my friends and an open invite to jump in.
I like it.
You will have that open invite from me.
I would love to hop on.
So I think going into I may do like maybe 3 shows a week to start in December. And then when we get into the new year, start ramping up to 5 days a week.
That'd be cool. That would be cool.
And that would truly be my lunch hour from work.
Right. Just spending your lunch hour just hanging out.
Yeah. And if you want to bring food and we just hang out and talk and whatever, it is what it is. But that's the plan going into the new year. In addition to, we'll be back to interviews. Of course, our roundtable every Thursday and our Sunday night show every Sunday night. But just a shoot the shit show every day at noon.
There's plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, thanks a bunch, Triston, for doing this.
Of course.
And again, we do have some other topics we need to expand on. So maybe through December, we'll have a couple more of these shows. And with that, everybody have a great Friday. Go Penn State tomorrow night against Oregon in the Big Ten Championship game. And Sunday is my first game as a Bears fan with the new head coach, Thomas Brown.
Yeah.
And so I get to check that out. Those are things we'd be talking about too.
Yeah.
In that show. But I have a big sports weekend ahead of me.
Best of luck.
And I did catch the first event of Dubai last night at like 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep.
I did not. What was it? The bike?
It was the bike. It put me to sleep pretty fast. Beautiful location. But if you can't see the meter, what's the point? Again, like reps ahead, TV screen that shows like what the watts are. Oh my gosh. I was like, okay, this will get me right back to bed.
Yeah. I'll just save my thoughts on that for another time.
Okay. With that, catch everybody next time, guys. Thank you to everybody in the chat for being here. We'll see you all then. Bye, guys.
Bye.